Alistair Overeem versus Alexander Volkov takes place this weekend in the main event of UFC Fight Night Vegas 18, Overeem versus Volkov, and I can't wait for this heavyweight bout, and I really want to find out if the one last run of Alistair Overeem will be successful or whether or not he will crash and burn this weekend against Alexander Volkov. And don't get me wrong, that would really pain me to see, because I am very invested in Alistair Overeem's career. I love the storyline of the one last run to get that belt that he has not yet achieved in his career so far. His amazing career as well, by the way. I mean, what has he not accomplished other than that UFC World Championship around his waist? But I truly believe that Alexander Volkov is going to go out there and put a halt to his one last run and finish Alistair Overeem in the later rounds. I'll say maybe a third round TKO for Alexander Volkov. I think he gets it done this weekend. I like his style. He's coming off a big win against Walt Harris, of course, a great performance, finishing with a front kick to the body and looked amazing there. Also before that, in his performance against Curtis Blades, showed a great improvement in his grappling game and also showed that he can push the pace in the later rounds against Curtis Blade. When Curtis Blade started to slow down in that fight, in the fourth round, Alexander Volkov came back and showed that he was still in it, and actually I thought stole that round from Curtis Blades. Also could have maybe stole the fifth round as well, because Alexander Volkov has shown in his recent few fights that he's improved massively, and Alistair Overeem has kind of done the same, even though he's an older guy, and he's sort of kind of losing that chin as the years go on and things are getting a little bit slower for Alistair Overeem, and he's losing a little bit of power as well in his hands. We have seen in Alistair Overeem's last few fights that his grappling has improved, his IQ has improved in the middle of a fight as well. We see him so calm under pressure and under fire. We saw that against Augusto Sakai in his last performance. Sakai was emptying the gas tank in the second and third and first round, and even in the fourth round at times, looking to get away Alistair Overeem in those rounds by just pouring on the pressure whenever Overeem would shell up against the cage. Eventually Overeem got him to the ground, made the adjustments and made Augusto Sakai pay. And also with Walt Harris, got rocked in the early round. Alistair Overeem almost put out in the first round. Eventually, Walt Harris starts to slow down. Alistair Overeem is the veteran. He gets Walt Harris to the ground, starts to take over, starts to land the ground and pound, and it was kind of like a sympathy stoppage for Walt Harris because he just wasn't doing anything whatsoever. It's not that Alistair Overeem was really concussing him and putting him out cold or anything. It was just that Walt Harris had no energy to do anything to help himself in that fight whatsoever, and I think that's going to be the main difference between Augusto Sakai and Walt Harris compared to Alexander Volkov. I believe that Alexander Volkov has the cardio to go 5 rounds. We saw that in his bout with Fabricio Verdum. He's been the main event of a UFC London card against Verdum, and he came back in the 4th round of that fight and put the pressure on Verdum and got the finish by TKO. I like his cardio. We saw it in the Blades fight as well. I also like his patience, which is something that Sakai and Walt Harris did not show against Alistair Overeem. When they had him hurt or when they had him shelling up against the cage, which seems to be something that always happens with Alistair Overeem. It happened in the Jairzinho Rosenstruik fight as well. Overeem shelling up against the cage, guard up high, just tucking up, waiting for the storm to end so he can come out afterwards and take advantage of a tired guy who's just emptied the gas tank trying to finish him. We saw that in Overeem's fights, and what we've seen in Volkov's fights is a patience that those other guys have not shown. We saw that against Derek Lewis, and I know you're going to say, well, it didn't really work out against Derek Lewis because he got KO'd in the end. I somewhat consider Alexander Volkov's fight against Derek Lewis a win for Alexander Volkov, because he just tore him apart the entire time until the last 10 seconds when he went for a leg kick in a fight that he was definitely winning, and Derek Lewis managed to get the KO blow. Well done, Derek Lewis. But what I saw was Alexander Volkov have Derek Lewis hurt, have every opportunity to go out there and finish him, but not do it because he saw that Derek Lewis was still in there trying to fire back at him and catch him on the chin as he went in for that finish. So Alexander Volkov was very patient, stuck on the outside, front kicks to the body, jabs as well to that eye of Derek Lewis that he kept peppering the entire night long, and that eventually swelled up. He was also hurt to the body, Derek Lewis, but every time Volkov came in, big shots from Derek Lewis coming back, and Volkov would back away, reset, go back towards his combinations, and I think that's something we've also seen with Alistair Overeem in his career. Whenever he is facing a combination puncher, like Augusto Sakai was doing to him, he starts to shell up a little bit. If you're going to go out there and try and pick single shots with Alistair Overeem, he's going to have a little bit of chance getting his head out of the way, landing a good shot back, getting you on the counter, maybe a knee in the clinch, pushing you back against the cage if he starts to dictate the pace in the fight. But I feel like when he fights a guy with volume that comes forward quite a bit, like Alexander Volkov does, I think it's going to be a problem because he does shell up every single time that happens against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, against Walt Harris, against Augusto Sakai. He shells up against a cage. And whenever he does that, these other opponents just start winging haymakers at the guard of Alistair Overeem. But I don't think Volkov's going to do that because Volkov has got some very selective shots. And I know a lot of people say that they don't like the way Volkov fights. A lot of experts in the MMA game come out and say, I don't like the way Volkov fights. He doesn't use his range too well. He smothers a lot of his shots. He's got an 80-inch reach. He's not like a 6'7" guy with a 90-inch reach or anything ridiculous like that. He's got the same reach as Alistair Overeem. I don't think he smothers his shots. He's just figured out that with these 4-ounce gloves, he can sneak a lot of shots around the guard of his opponents. And I think Alistair Overeem has a little bit of a safety shell whenever he goes into that guard, when he backs himself up against the cage and waits for the pressure to end. And I think Volkov, with his style of getting in there and whipping shots around the guard with close range hooks and uppercuts as well, I think he's going to find his way through Alistair Overeem's guard, and the Reem is going to be covering up in a less than beneficial way for himself. And I think Volkov's going to be mixing in knees to the body of his own, front kicks to the body as well. This is something else we can talk about. Alistair Overeem, what does he do so well? Clinch and knees to the body in fights. We saw them against Sakai, we saw them against Rozenstruik, we saw them against Walt Harris as well. Something that Overeem has always done throughout his career, especially the Mark Hunt fight, if you'll remember that KO that he got over Mark Hunt. The knees up the middle to the body and to the head are so dangerous, and that is naturally kind of taken away from him as an option against a guy who's 6'7", so tall and so good in the clinch and very strong for his size as well. I think Alexander Volkov's going to be too good for him, in all honesty. And I think Volkov's going to be too IQ'd to go out there and waste all of his energy going for a finish on Alistair Overeem. And I kind of want Alistair Overeem to win because I want to see the one last run come to effect and him to finally get his hands on that UFC title and then retire afterwards as the king of the world. I would like nothing more than that. Alistair Overeem has been around for ages. I've always been a fan of Alistair Overeem. But I think Alexander Volkov gets this one done brutally in the 3rd round. And I think it comes by the way of him mixing it up against Alistair Overeem. I know some people called me crazy for calling a TKO rather than a KO for Alexander Volkov. You think Volkov's going to TKO Overeem? That's just how Volkov gets finishes in fights. He wears people down. He eventually gets to them. I think he'll start mixing in the front kicks to the body whenever Overeem is shelling up against a cage. He'll start with the punches, moving forward, throwing good combinations. Overeem will shell up against the cage, and instead of doing what every other opponent does and just winging hooks in there, I think Volkov's going to be jabbing, lead uppercutting up the middle of the guard, front kicks to the body while Overeem is hunched over in the corner. I think he'll systematically work down Overeem. It'll be a very slow-paced first round where both guys are trying to get each other's time in, clinching up against the cage maybe a little bit. I don't think we'll see any takedowns from Alistair Overeem land in the early parts of these rounds, mainly because, again, the only way Overeem has gotten takedowns in his past few fights, other than against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, has been when his opponents are extremely tired. Augusto Sakai just sort of gave him positions on the ground by shelling up and turning over. DC said it on commentary himself. You can even go into the fight with Walt Harris as well. Walt Harris was completely gassed out in that 2nd round like he had nothing left. And why wouldn't he be? He's only a professional athlete for a fucking living, so why wouldn't he only be able to fight for fucking 2 minutes? Walt Harris, completely gassed out, gave Overeem positions, didn't want to fight out of them whatsoever, eventually had to be called off because he just wouldn't do anything off of bottom. Alexander Volkov against Fabricio Verdum stayed patient on bottom, survived against Fabricio Verdum on top of him, and we saw what Fabricio Verdum could do to Walt Harris on the ground. He didn't need Walt Harris to quit. He just went straight to what he wanted on the ground with Walt Harris, and we kind of saw that Walt Harris's ground game is a little bit meh. I mean, Fabricio Verdum, look what he did to Alexander Gustafsson as well. Got him straight to the ground, got exactly what he wanted immediately. Give me that arm and I'm taking it home with me. Same with Walt Harris, but against Alexander Volkov around a similar time of Fabricio Verdum's career. This is not an older Fabricio Verdum. It's still a relevant guy at the time. I believe it was 2017, 2018. Yeah, a little bit older, but not the guy that Gustafsson got put against. Or Olenek in that case as well. I mean, Verdum's looked a little bit worse recently over the past few years, but at that time, Verdum was still a threat in the division, and Volkov survived on the ground with him for so long. I believe Verdum had something like a 6.5 minute control time in that fight on top on the ground, and Volkov would stay calm, keep his guard, get back to his feet whenever he could, start to work on Verdum, and eventually Verdum couldn't take it anymore. This guy's surviving everything I'm doing to him, and I'm exerting a lot of energy, and he's just tapping me with these little shots that's not taking anything out of his gas tank whatsoever. I don't see this going to Overeem, and I'd love to pick him, but I can't do it. I think Alexander Volkov's one of the best in the division, and I think he's still young, which he is. 32 years of age at heavyweight is a very young guy. Overeem's now 40 years of age, and I know that he's not losing by KO in these bouts, but he still took a lot of damage against Augusto Sakai. That fight could have been stopped at one point if a couple of extra punches landed against Walt Harris, and that would have been a KO loss worth of concussion damage. He also got finished by Jairzinho Rozenstruik in the 5th round, and I know that I maybe give that fight to Alistair Overeem, but again, in that fight with Jairzinho Rozenstruik, on the ground, a guy that just wasn't tired, on the ground in Jairzinho Rozenstruik, like Augusto Sakai and Walt Harris were. He was able to survive Alistair Overeem on top of him, not give him too much positional control, keep his knees up, keep his guard. I think Overeem had side control for ages, but he couldn't really do anything because Jairzinho was just negating him on the ground, but Overeem was doing enough to win himself the rounds, don't get me wrong. But still, Jairzinho Rozenstruik stayed safe on the ground with basic understanding of grappling defense and a good gas tank, and I think Alexander Volkov's done that against Curtis Blades, Fabricio Verdum. I don't see it going to the ground, and I don't see Overeem doing anything of any damage on the ground if it does get there either. I see this being on the feet, and if it's on the feet, Alexander Volkov's going to pick apart Alistair Overeem with kicks to the stomach, front kicks to the stomach, teeps to the stomach, jabs, lead uppercuts, right hooks, sneaking him round the guard, sneaking him up the guard, and I don't think Overeem's going to do what he wants to do against Volkov in there. Can't use the clinch like you normally can. Can't get the tie clinch on a guy that's 4 inches taller than you. Can't really land the knees to the stomach with the same effectiveness against a guy who's way taller than you as well. You've got to really lift those knees up to get any power on them, and you're not going to have too much power on them if you're lifting them up above the range of motion that's normal for you. I just don't see Volkov losing this one. I think he wins, and maybe Overeem gets it done, and I'll be very happy if he does. But I think the winner of this one is looking at themselves in the position of maybe one more fight, then we're looking at a title shot. But right now at heavyweight, it's a little bit of a problem. What I could really see happening is, if Ngannou wins the belt against Stipe, he's probably going to turn around 3 months later to fight Jon Jones immediately and make that payday that he's been held back from for so long because of the inactivity of the heavyweight division right now around the title. I mean, DC and Stipe are the only people that have fought for it over the past 2 years. Derek Lewis's name in there over the past 3 years, and that's not a good sign for the heavyweight. So right now, the winner of this one is going to be in a weird situation unless Ngannou wins, or unless if Stipe beats Ngannou, Jon Jones should just fight the winner of Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis for an interim title while we wait for Stipe to come back around in a year, which he probably will, because I love Stipe Miocic. He's the greatest heavyweight of all time, but for fuck's sake, get back in the cage a little bit quicker sometimes. I understand there's some fires to put out, but it's fucking January. It's snowing, you know? There ain't no fires. Let Mother Nature deal with that, Stipe. Get back in the cage. Let's figure some things out. And I think the winner of this one is looking at the winner of Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Cyril Gane next. If that's the Overeem versus Rozenstruik rematch, I'll be very happy for that. There's storyline there. It could be a Volkov versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik matchup, which would be amazing. A Volkov versus Cyril Gane matchup would also be amazing. I think that's the perfect fight to pair them with right now. Winner of that one is probably going to be waiting out for a little bit until the top of the division figures itself out. But the winner of this one's going to be in a great position. I just feel like we're going to see the retirement of Overeem at the start of 2021. It's going to be a sad time. I think he's just not going to be able to take the barrage of educated attacks from Volkov, who can push a pace like crazy for as long as he wants. We saw that against Stefan Struve. If you're going to be there against a cage with him, he can output like crazy against you. Look at the Stefan Struve fight, 135 significant strikes in 15 minutes from a heavyweight, and he's landing good percentages of them as well. Very educated, 60% in the first round, 47 in the second, 56 in the third. There's not a lot of wasted energy. He doesn't wing haymakers. I think he's just going to break down Overeem until eventually catching him with an uppercut against the cage at the end of the third round, putting him away for good. Volkov gets it done. He's also a little bit bigger now, which I think is going to be good for him to hold his own and have a bit more power in these combinations, and it's going to help him in the grappling as well from keeping these big guys from taking him down. Volkov gets it done. Thank you for watching the video. Like and subscribe. It's a great fight anyway, and the card is really good this weekend. Overeem versus Volkov is better than 258, and I don't know why that keeps happening. It's better than 257. Poirier McGregor too. I don't know why. Why are these situations popping up every single month now where we have a fight night card better than a fucking pay-per-view that they expect people to pay $70 for? What are they doing? raising the pay-per-view price and then lowering the quality of the pay-per-views. It just does, well, whatever. We have 259 and shit coming up soon. March is going to be a great month, but I just feel like Volkov wins this one. Then we've got Rosenstruck versus Gain in the main event as well. So that's going to build the heavyweight division, and I think Volkov's going to establish himself as one of the top guys and a key player in the heavyweight division right now, and I think it's time for Overeem to call it quits. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Goodbye. I'll see you later. Toodle pip.